You have reached Kellogg Brown & Root Overseas Employment Hotline for LogCap 3.
The biggest contract in Iraq is with Halliburton's subsidiary, KBR, a logistics company that provides support for U.S. troops around the world.
We are hiring for operations in Iraq, Kuwait, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, and Djibouti.
KBR is still hiring.
Living conditions in the Middle East are extremely harsh. Iraq and Kuwait are located in a desert climate with an average temperature of 120 degrees.
So far, KBR has been asked to perform nearly $12 billion worth of services.
Afghanistan and Iraq are listed as hazard zones by the Department of State. Therefore, you will receive hazard pay. To return to the main menu, press 1.
KBR is the military's lifeline, its main supplier. KBR's convoys don't use private security. They are provided military escorts.
Any kind of contact, just keep on moving. Our gun trucks will fix and flank on those, and we should be okay. If for some reason you do get broke up, just keep on going. We'll go a couple miles up the road, we'll rally, and then we'll get everybody together.
We wanted to ride along with KBR's drivers, but the company told us it's too dangerous.
Don't have any questions, we'll get in our trucks and we'll get going.
1 out of every 3 convoys comes under fire. Over 65 KBR employees, 16 of them truckers, have been killed since the beginning of the war. The biggest attack came on April 9th, 2004, when insurgents ambushed a 19-truck KBR convoy. 6 drivers were killed. Coming just a week after the Fallujah attack, contractors across Iraq were increasingly terrified.
They attacked our convoy.
Lead KBR truck driver Thomas Hamill was taken hostage and held for 23 days. Another KBR trucker is still missing. After the April 9th incident, we were told that scores of KBR truckers refused to drive until security improved. Hundreds of contractors left the country. For weeks, the military was left with dwindling stores of ammunition, fuel, and water.
The contractor is not part of the chain of command, and they can decide to leave when and where they want. They can decide to leave if they get a better job offer by another private military company or by some other company back home. They can decide to leave because they're just tired of this. These are all decisions that a contractor has the discretion to make that someone within the military does not. And so what you've done is put a level of uncertainty into your military operation. And military operations are not a place that you want uncertainty.
The Army's after-action report for April 9th concluded that KBR's truckers needed to be trained to fire weapons, to be more like soldiers. When KBR was initially tasked to assist the U.S. military, the assumption was that the war would be short-lived, and that KBR would wind down its operations quickly. Instead, it grew far beyond all expectations.
This is huge. This is bigger than the biggest logistics operation that there is. This is World War scale logistics boiled down to a very refined process. All commodities in, all commodities out, personnel in, personnel out, military equipment in, military equipment out. We provide movement control reports on the movement of everything.
KBR's trucking hub is Camp Arifjan in Kuwait. It sprawls over 10 square miles. Through here, KBR has shipped and delivered 500 million gallons of fuel and 100 million pounds of mail. Of the 50,000 people KBR employs, 13,000 are Americans. The rest are lower-paid workers from the Philippines, India, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. They work at over 60 sites throughout Iraq and Kuwait. The first KBR employees arrived 6 months before the invasion of Iraq. They built the bases and maintained the equipment. While Americans debated whether to go to war, KBR was hard at work. Historically, there is nothing new about the military's use of private contractors. What's new is the scale. Jobs like air traffic control, the refueling of aircraft, and the maintenance and loading of advanced weapon systems were always the sole province of soldiers. A change in policy dates back to the end of the Cold War, when the Pentagon was downsizing. The then Secretary of Defense, Dick Cheney, first hired Halliburton as a consultant. The rest is well known. After leaving government, Cheney became the president of Halliburton, parent company of KBR.
And they came up with a conclusion it's cheaper to outsource. So they outsourced to KBR, and we got the contract. We do what they ask us to do. We support the military with an equivalent of over 30 battalions worth of support. That's a lot.
KBR runs dozens of Army bases in Iraq, and all the ones we visited had a food court like this one.
Door 46, please.
You can have pizza, a burger, or a hero. KBR set up Camp Victory inside one of Saddam's former palace complexes. It's impressive enough, but KBR was eager to show us something even bigger. We were flown 40 miles north of Baghdad to the largest military base in Iraq. Located in the Sunni Triangle, some call it Fort KBR. I've never seen anything like it. Here there are vast neighborhoods set behind concrete barriers known as Bremer walls. 28,000 soldiers and 8,000 contractors live here. There's a Wild West-themed post office with a captured Iraqi anti-aircraft gun out front. A movie theater next to another Subway franchise. And a rec center where soldiers can relax away from the battlefield.
We have gyms, salsa dancing, taekwondo, and you name it. There's probably something for everybody there is.
KBR's Gary Carter is nicknamed the mayor of Anaconda.
We have the sewer system on the base. We have the water production on the base, providing about 1.3 million gallons daily. Our laundry facility here, we do about 80,000 bags of laundry a month. We have over 1,000 generators on this base running, providing power. That's a key element, the power that will power the lights, the pumps, the air conditioners, the heaters.
You're doing a lot better than a lot of the Iraqis.
We're trying to provide that power.
Thank you, sir. Welcome, sir.
We have the food service here on the base. 105,000 meals a day, feeding over 30,000 individuals.
So then you got 35,000 people, 105,000 meals a day you're serving here. Do you have that broken down in terms of cost?
We don't break that out.
We don't break it out. It's it's
we can get the total definitization. We don't break it out by individual.
That's Stephanie Price of KBR Media Relations.
So you don't have a cost per meal?
We don't break it out that way, no.
So if I was going to try to figure out how much it was costing to serve, cook the food, how would I go about doing that?
I'll redirect
she can direct you to that.
I mean, we're really here to show you the level of service. If you want to go back, then I'll take you back to Paul.
Can you give me some idea of how much it costs to run this city in a day?
No, not actually.
Stephanie continued the discussion in the car.
Marty, I'm just telling you how we release our figures per the government. No one's going to break down cost per camp for you. It's just not going to happen.
You know, this is what concerns people, because when it's under the military, it's public information. And once you privatize services that are provided with taxpayer dollars...
It's public information, but they don't break it down per camp. I mean...
But what if I want to find out how much it's costing to feed troops or to clean latrines, just that specific information?
Well then, I mean, see if the military will provide you that.
Okay. We went to see the other mayor of Anaconda, Base Commander Colonel David Fitzgerald. We found him presiding over a ceremony.
Mr. Jorge Habilon.
Handing out certificates of recognition to KBR employees.
1, 2, 3.
I took Stephanie's advice and asked the colonel about costs. He was refreshingly open.
Do you break costs down? Do you have an idea how much it's costing you to feed each one of your soldiers, for instance?
Sure do. Not only do I break it down, I have a meeting every week. A number of my staff members have a meeting every week, and we look specifically at that with KBR, and we track those costs.
Do you know how much it costs to feed a soldier?
It costs roughly, I think it's probably in the neighborhood of less than about $20 a plate per service, and we have quite a few servings per day.
The quality and range of services KBR provides to soldiers is impressive, but cost is a real issue. An audit by the U.S. Government Accountability Office of dining hall costs for one 4-month period alleges KBR charged $88 million for meals they never served. And Pentagon audits allege that KBR overcharged $108 million for fuel and billed the government $1.8 billion in other unsupported costs. The Pentagon terminated the fuel contract. As for meals, KBR says workers prepared food that just wasn't consumed. And the unsupported $1.8 billion, KBR says, is a paperwork issue that's being resolved.
You've got at least 4 vigorous investigations going on. Other big companies have operated in this theater, Bechtel, Parsons in the oil sector and reconstruction. They haven't attracted as much attention. Halliburton, KBR gets singled out as a particular target. Why?
I don't know. If I knew the answer to that, I'd probably be in politics or religion.
Well, you must do some thinking about it.
Well, I've got some feelings about it. I mean, the only thing we can do is stand up and give a true and honest evaluation of what we've done, show the documentation and why we arrived at those conclusions, and let whoever is making the assessment make the assessment. We are not afraid of that process. We are not afraid of that process at all. I welcome it because I'm a taxpayer too.
KBR has inspired a cottage industry of critics, charging undue political influence and financial fraud. But for all the controversy, there are many in Wall Street and in Washington who believe KBR is making only a slim profit, that they've been simply overwhelmed by the military's needs and failed to adequately track costs. The Pentagon never intended to keep so many troops in Iraq for so long anyway. But now, Anaconda is slated to become one of 4 so-called enduring bases in Iraq. Some veteran officers complain that it's a bad idea in a war zone.
We did it in Vietnam, too. When we created these huge base isolations in Vietnam, where we set ourselves aside from the population, created great luxury for the forces that lived there, and that doesn't really get you anything in counterinsurgency. It creates a lot of problems. If the assumption is this is a peacetime occupation, and then you want your base to start to look like Germany. If you think you're still in a war zone, you build a different structure altogether. I frankly was stunned at the level of care. I mean, the big screen TVs, the 3 main courses, 3 kinds of ice cream with multiple flavored toppings.
Thanks.
Several kinds of pastries and all of these sorts of things. Some feeling that we have to do this because the troops won't respond otherwise. I don't think that's true. The 5 months I was in Somalia with the Marines, we never really had a hot meal. There were no showers built. Nobody seemed to have a problem with that. I mean, you're in a war. So this is misguided luxury. Somebody's risking their life to deliver that luxury. Maybe you could tone down the luxury, put fewer vehicles on the road.
retired military say, you know, our soldiers don't need 3 flavors of ice cream. They don't need lobster or they don't need cordon bleu. What they need is a safe, secure environment. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, American soldier loves milk and ice cream. And so if that makes him feel better, why shouldn't you provide it? I mean, there's a lot to be said about bringing an individual inside the wire and providing him these amenities that don't have to be provided by soldiers. I mean, I spent my entire career watching soldiers pull KP in the kitchen. Why do we have to do that with soldiers? Why can't we outsource that mission?
In an all-volunteer Army, no one is going to sign up and clean latrines. The Army is failing to make its enlistment quotas as it is. But in Iraq, soldiers we spoke to were not sure about using private contractors either.
The thing is you can't tell one of them to go man a guard tower. You can't tell one of them that they need to pull security or go out on a raid or do a different job. You can't make them do push-ups if they screw up. Basically, they just get fired and go home and they get another person they can use for a year.
Before we came to Iraq, and after we returned, we tried to ask top Pentagon officials responsible for acquisition, manpower, logistics, and procurement questions about outsourcing. They all declined to be interviewed. Other officials told us that outsourcing is a sensitive issue in the Pentagon.